Hey, this is Deepak here from bikerboy.com, and today in this video I want to talk about my ownership experience of the Honda Transalp 750. I'm going to talk about why I chose this bike and how it compares to the previous bikes I have owned and the highs and lows that I have experienced with this bike. Previously I had a Kawasaki Versys 650 and before that I had a Harley Street 750. I have been having super bikes around the range of 500 to 1000 cc, and before that I did have a Hero Honda Charisma and a Yamaha R15 long back. So those were in the 150 to 200 cc category. I would not really count those motorcycling experiences because I was immature, pretty young, and I was not doing very long rides with those bikes. Those bikes were more for commuting than for experience and just the joy of motorcycling. 2016, when I bought my Harley Street 750, it was the first batch of Street 750 motorcycles in India. And to cut the cost, they did not even include ABS in the bike. The tires were pretty hard, and I did have a skid and I fell. After I fell, within a month, I sold the bike and I wanted a bike which had ABS. I understood that Harley Davidson motorcycles are not really good for Indian roads or for any roads for that matter. They are not very well refined motorcycles. It has a lot of brand around it, it has a community around it, but the quality of motorcycles are very questionable. When I moved away from Harley Davidson, I understood that I don't want a cruiser. And we can say that in cars, a lot of people prefer SUVs than a sedan, and that's because an SUV can handle the road conditions, especially in India, in a much better way. SUVs come with higher ground clearance and looks better for certain people the way you look at it. In bikes, I would say that the cruisers, which has a little bit of a lean back riding position, those kind of bikes can be compared to sedans. And in US, the roads are really good, and in many parts of the world, the roads are pretty smooth without any potholes. But we cannot say the same for India. 80% you have road, and 20% is naturally off road, even if you do not take your motorcycle or car off roading. So we need higher ground clearance and better capabilities. When I looked at Kawasaki Versys 650, it looked like a very refined motorcycle. I tested Versys 650 and Tiger 800 extensively. I used to rent it from this company called Wicked Ride, which is not there anymore. But I was able to rent these motorcycles for around 5,000 to 6,000 for 24 hours. So I would ride these motorcycles and get a feel of it. I really loved the Tiger 800. That's one of the best bikes that I have ridden at that moment in time. But it was outside my budget. It costed anywhere from 15 to 20 lakhs. So I settled on Kawasaki Versys 650, and it was not necessarily an off-roading bike or an adventure bike. It was more of a sports tourer, but it had a tall riding stance, an upright riding stance. It's not lean back, and I did not like the sports bikes where you had to lean forward. So sports bikes like Yamaha R15, even though Yamaha R15 is not a sports bike, the riding position is very much of a lean forward kind of position, and I felt that it's good for the track. It's good for people who want to really go fast, but I wanted something that was like an upright riding posture, comfortable riding posture. I don't want to get the thrill of riding too fast in a bike. I wanted to enjoy the ride, and in India you can expect that enjoyable ride to be anywhere between 90 to 120 kmph cruising speed. Kawasaki Versys had a very good engine. It still has. It is a little bit top heavy, but I did get my Kawasaki Versys, enjoyed it for a while. I think probably 20 to 30,000 kilometers is what I rode my Kawasaki Versys for. But again, one of the biggest challenges in Kawasaki Versys 650 was that it was very top heavy, which means that if you are slowing down in traffic, you need to constantly keep your foot down, and the bike would at any time try to pull you down on one side, and the center of gravity was pretty high. If you look at Honda Africa Twin, the previous version of Honda Africa Twin also was very top heavy. So when these adventure motorcycles or sports touring motorcycles have good ground clearance and has a tall riding posture, it's very difficult for these motorcycles to also have a low center of gravity. When you look at Tiger 800 and the Tiger 900 right now, they do have very good handling, but Kawasaki Versys 650 did not have such great handling. So I had come down to a few options to upgrade from Kawasaki Versys 650. The first option was BMW R1300 GS. I tested the bike. It has a boxer engine, the center of gravity is very low, and that was my dream bike. It still is my dream bike. But the problem with R1300 GS was that the GSA version was not released. The R1250 GSA and GS version had stopped, and it was just way beyond my budget. I did not want to spend 30 plus lakhs on a BMW bike, and that too directly upgrading from Versys 650 to such a heavy bike did not look like a good idea. In fact, I went all the way to booking the motorcycle and then getting the booking advance back. As a probable second thought, I decided not to go for the R1300 GS. Then I was contemplating to buy the F900 GS or the F900 GSA, which was recently launched. And this particular bike looked very good, looked like R1250 GSA, and I saw a lot of online reviews. But then after discussing with a few people in the industry who are really good experts, one is Srijit from Bike and Biker. Everybody told me that if you are buying a BMW, might as well go for the R1300 GSA, not even the R1300 GS. So I tested a few more BMW motorcycles, including the G310, and I was not really happy to go for a sub 500cc motorcycle. So I ended up deciding not to go for the BMW right now. If at all I am going for the BMW, I will wait for the R1300 GSA and the completely automatic version. So similar to Honda's DCT in Africa Twin and Goldwing, the GSA version has an ASA. It's called Automatic Shift Assistant. So that might be a really good upgrade, and it's a benchmark of a motorcycle. So F900 GSA was also cancelled from my plans. So I was almost there booking a Versys 650 again, because the Versys 1000 was also not available. Right now it is just launched, the Versys 1100, but earlier the Versys 1000 was there, but again that got discontinued. So Versys 650 looked like the only option, and I might have gone for Versys 650 again. And somehow Transalp 750 did not even come under my radar. I did call Honda and ask for Africa Twin, and Africa Twin also they said only by September 2025 it will be launched, and because of emission norms and stuff like that, it's not available. So I was in this confusion, not really knowing what bike to choose. And then Srijit from Bike and Biker really insisted me to go and take a test ride of Transalp. And one of the reasons that Transalp was not under my radar is because it does not look that great. The headlight design is not that great, and sometimes we end up giving too much importance to the looks of a bike and the design of a bike before buying the bike. But after you buy the bike, it kind of feels like it does not matter at all. So I got a good highway test ride. I went for like 100 kilometers on the Transalp and was absolutely mind blown by the smoothness of the engine and the way it handled. And it is 90 bhp, which is just 10 bhp less than Africa Twin, and it's 750cc compared to Africa Twin's 1100cc. And a lot of people call Transalp 750 as the Africa Twin, which is like half of Africa Twin. So I pretty much made up my mind. there was only one color option available. I could have waited for the 2025 version, but it's February end of 2025, and the new version of Transalp is still nowhere to be found in the Indian market. So I just went ahead for the 2024 version, and there were a few things that were concerning me in terms of Transalp ownership. The first thing was that it did not have tubeless tires. So if I am going on a cross country ride, then I might have to upgrade it to the tubeless tires of Africa Twin, and that would cost me another 1.5 lakhs. So right now it has tube tires, and if you get a puncture, it's a huge headache to change the tubes, and a lot of these local mechanics might not have the knowledge or the experience to change the tube of a Honda Transalp tire. So that is one thing I'm yet to do. Right now I'm still on the tube tires. I have not upgraded. There is a bunch of accessories which I installed, which I will make a separate video about. Uh, it includes the crash guards, the engine guard, the bash plate, and the RAM mount, and a few standard upgrades like that. And I have done 2000 kilometers on the Transalp so far, and I couldn't be happier about my decision. So special thanks to Srijit for pushing me to go for the Transalp, because compared to BMW, Ducati, and motorcycles like Triumph, where Honda really shines is the reliability and the smoothness of the engine. And you can see stories of a 50-year-old Honda bike still running smoothly. So after, I think, World War II, Honda had a lot of constraints in manufacturing, and they had to develop a lot of processes and systems which are very strict in terms of manufacturing to kind of make the entire manufacturing process highly efficient. And that resulted in motorcycles which never break, with insanely high amounts of reliability. So I think the engine smoothness is something that only Honda can deliver. And sometimes I think, how long can they do this? Is it for the time being? What if 10 years down the line it's just electric motorcycles because of government regulations or whatever? As of now, if you drive around a Honda motorcycle or even Honda cars for that matter, you will feel like there is a special kind of smoothness in Honda which will be not matched by any other company. When I had tested the BMW 1300 GS, obviously it's a league of its own. I wouldn't compare Transalp to the 1300 GS. But when you compare Transalp to F900 GSA, definitely Transalp feels much better as a bike. It's a well-rounded bike, makes you proud as a owner. And I also kind of figured out that maybe drawing too much attention to the bike that you are riding on the road is also not a good idea, because people will come and try to sit on it, take a selfie, and they will keep coming and asking you what is the cost of the bike, and they will suddenly say that, oh, for this cost you could buy a car, which is like kind of always a stupid question that they ask. Of course we have cars, but we ride bikes because two wheels move the soul and four wheels move the body. But you can't explain all this to them. And the benefit with Transalp is that it looks like a big bike, but not like an extremely attractive bike that you have to worry about it. And people don't bother you much. They kind of maybe just give it a glance and they move on. So I think that is actually an advantage than a disadvantage. If you are riding motorcycles to show off, then obviously you should not be riding motorcycles at all. But if you are just wanting to have a good motorcycle that rides well and makes you happy, kind of makes you feel free and get away from the daily worries of life, then absolutely go for the Transalp 750. Test ride it and just grab one if you are thinking of buying a super bike somewhere between 500 to 1000 cc. And don't go for a 1000 plus cc bike right away. Go for a 600 to 800 cc bike first. Get enough riding experience, enjoy the bike, and then maybe in the future you can upgrade. So right now in my list, I have R1300 GSA, the BMW one, as one of my dream bikes. and then obviously Honda Goldwing is also one of my dream bikes. So if I had the money and I had the freedom, I would probably keep the Transalp, buy a 1300 GSA as well as a Honda Goldwing. It might take a few years or it might take a decade as well, but as of now, I am totally enjoying my Honda Transalp and I would probably own this particular bike forever. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and leave a comment below and I will answer those questions in the YouTube comments. I hope you liked this video and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.